seaplane landing. How about we do another one?
Yeah, good.
Today we're going to be doing an unboxing video, yay, of a DeWalt DWP849x. We worked with DeWalt for a long time to make this a really cool polisher, so to me it's kind of a special thing to do this. So let's begin. Obviously there's some tape. We can cut through that with anything sharp. Today I'm just going to use some keys, alright? So what I'm not going to be able to show you is how excited I am about the DeWalt manual. This is something really important to read right before you... Anyway, so with the machine you get a couple things. There's a Velcro backed single-sided pad backing plate. There's a really cool handle that you can throw in the side of your polisher should you choose. I know a lot of car guys love to use these things. Boat guys generally not so much. It's a personal choice. You'll do what you like. Again, the D loop or D ring, this is also something that I know a lot of car guys enjoy using on their polisher. I choose not to. If I do use one, historically we'll break the little nubs off and on both sides. That way at least we can rotate it when we need to, and we'll just tighten the screws up extra tight so that it doesn't fall off. Here it is, the pièce de résistance. This bad girl is all sorts of beautiful. There's a lot of stuff inside here that make it better than what it used to be. If you remember the old polisher, thing was a brute. We used to call her Big Bertha. She could probably pull the hood off of a car if the compound got gummy at all. And last but not least, there are some tools that DeWalt has provided for us. So there's an Allen wrench, a centering tube, and a couple neck bolts from Frankenstein. And this basically represents everything you get when you purchase the DeWalt. Alright, so with the DeWalt and setting up a buffer for boat polishing, it depends on if you're right or left-handed. This handle right here would either go on one side or the other and kind of give you a little bit of extra torque for when you really need to push. Gives you also a little bit more control. The only problem with this is it limits what you can do with this polisher. In other words, this section right here is now off limits to you. So if you're around something that's going to impede your buffer getting into a section, probably this is going to have something to do with it. This leads me to why we don't use this or the D-ring. Although the D-ring is very comfortable for long periods of use, and if you choose for doing the side of a boat, you can place your hand inside the D-ring and prop it up a little bit. This gives you a little bit of friction to hold on to the buffer if you're only doing a one-handed polish job. The problem is, again, it gets in the way. So even if you rotate it fully forward, it's still a little bit in the way. So two things that DeWalt has given us that we find absolutely useless. Not that I don't appreciate that DeWalt handed them to us in the box. The next thing are these nuts. Generally, if you're not going to use the D-loop, you have no reason for the nuts. I prefer, actually, I enjoy putting them into the side head of the buffer. If nothing else, it reminds me that the buffer is metal and heavy, and it's got these giant things sticking off to the side, so I need to be careful not to let this thing just go willy-nilly on the boat. Also, this helps dissipate a little bit of heat with the ridges on the sides of the bolts, and it gives me one more thing to wrap my hand around should I need to actually use this with one hand. So, for all intents and purposes, it's not a really good idea to have these in there unless you really crank them down tight with one of these. If this rattles loose and falls on your pad while you're buffing, you could have a bad day. Also, these sticking off to the side, if the polisher rolls over and you don't have a pad on the side, this is going to mar whatever it hits, so also bad day. So this leaves us with the last two things that DeWalt has provided for us in the box. This is a $60 to $70 piece should you decide to buy it aftermarket, retail. DeWalt throws it in, very nice of them. You don't need to put a spacer nut on here. All you need to do is slap it on. That's it. Now I just so happen to have a single-sided polishing pad, so I can show you how this is supposed to work. So this piece right here slides into this fancy little hole that's provided inside the Velcro backing plate, thusly, and then you can see a corresponding hole. Watch this magic. The only problem with this, and the only reason we don't use these, is this looks really centered, but my guess is it's a little bit not. So what we do is just place it on the pad, spin the buffer a little bit, see if it's hopping and wobbling, adjust it. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes. It's a pain in the arse, but it's what you got to do. The next option, should you not like a single-sided pad, which is what we prefer to do, is go with a dual-sided pad. So a dual-sided pad is just like a single-sided pad, except for the name's different because it's different. 2 sides instead of 1. But there's also a corresponding hole inside the pad that matches right here. What you do not, absolutely do not want to do, is thread this directly onto the buffer and think you're a buff magic god. What's going to happen is you're going to push really, really hard, and this little threaded tip's going to go through and scratch the bejesus out of your boat. So, if you're going to use a double-sided pad, you're going to want to use a spacer nut. And there's a bunch of different types. There's actually 4 types that I'm aware of. Any 5/8 inch nut will work. Basically, it just screws on, and this keeps the pad off of the final threads of your spindle. You can also use another version of a 5/8 inch nut, and this just make sure that all the fibers aren't pushing into the threads when you screw this on. Now you're screwing this on about as tightly as you can physically. And to do that, you're going to press this locking key right here, and this locks the spindle so that while you're tightening this up, you can lock the machine in place and really crank on it. So getting this nut on here will keep the pad spaced off so that you're not interfering with the boat with these threads. That would be disastrous. So there are 2 versions of a spindle nut. There's also 2 more. I brought an example of 1 more. And this is the one you can buy from 3M. I think it's $12. And one of the reasons is you want to crank it on there so that it doesn't come off with the pad. If it does, it's kind of a pain in the ass getting any leverage on this nut while it's almost welded into the threads of the buffer. So this is a 1-inch, 5/8 inch spacer nut, and all its job is to take the pad a little bit further away from the machine and to shrink up the length of the threads so that they don't poke through. So this is pretty much what we got going on, and when you put a pad on, this is how tight you want it. That's it, no tighter. If you really crank it on, it's going to cause problems. So to get this off, again, squeeze the spindle nut lock, and give it a spin, and off she falls. There you go. This is the DeWalt DWP849x. Get out there and polish a boat. Tell us what you think. Thanks a lot. Bye.